Hey there, welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 31. I'm Chad.
I'm Mike.
And the part of Mike's collection we're going to be talking about today is...
just some random shit. Like, we just shot an episode where we talked about our latest G.I. Joes. I've actually gotten quite a bit of new stuff. I got a new wave of Masters of the Universe Origins, but I'm going to do a whole video devoted to them. I also recently got a whole wave of Avengers Marvel Legends, but again, I'll do a whole video devoted to them. So this is kind of my miscellaneous
mishmash.
Yeah, so this is just kind of covering some random stuff that I picked up. I did pick up this guy at the dollar store the other day. This guy was $3. But this is one of the world's smallest line. Have you seen these?
Oh, I have, yeah.
So I bought one of these a couple of years ago before I knew what they were. He's right there. I have the...
yeah.
It's a G.I. Joe, and it's a little mini, teeny version, like 1 inch tall, 2 inches tall, probably 1 inch. And it's based on the old 60s G.I. Joe, the 12-inch doll. Now, that was before my time. I'm not really into the 12-inch dolls, but I just thought it was really neat that they had this little mini thing. And it was only later I learned that this World's Smallest is this whole brand, and they've covered all kinds of stuff. You can buy World's Smallest, not just... so this is Optimus Prime of the Transformers, but you can get G.I. Joes, Transformers, He-Man, plus you can get like Nintendo or like cars or washing machines. Like, they do mini versions of everything under the sun. And yeah, I thought they're kind of neat. Like, it's nothing that I would need to collect because they're not very functional. Like, you can't really play with them, and even to display on my wall, it's a lot of dead space there. It's not really the most.
It's unique though.
Yeah, and this thing. Well, now I have two of them. I've got G.I. Joe and I've got Optimus Prime. I wouldn't need a ton more of these. I've seen them online, but I didn't really feel compelled to order them online. But once I saw it right in front of me, it was only going to cost me $3. You know, that's pocket change. So they had Bumblebee and Optimus Prime. I left Bumblebee behind, but I grabbed Optimus Prime. You can also get Starscream, but they didn't have him there.
And this was at the dollar store?
The dollar store, yeah. And I know in G.I. Joe you can get Roadblock, Duke, and Snake Eyes. Mm-hmm. And I would like the Snake Eyes, because in our last episode we were just talking about how I just recently got this new 6-inch version of Snake Eyes, and it's got this familiar artwork of Snake Eyes. And I have this same figure on my wall, still carded, in the 4-inch format and the 12-inch format. It would be kind of fun to get the Snake Eyes in the 1-inch format, because it still has the same card art as this one. So that would be an even smaller version. I could have G.I. Joe carded Snake Eyes going right up from 1 inch to 12 inches. But anyway, he's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of thing that I post all my toys on Instagram, and I try and do little gags and little comic strips with them. This is the kind of thing that would be a good prop. I can have Optimus Prime holding a toy of himself and stuff. Like, it's so small that it's like almost action figure scale for action figures.
It's like the Sergeant Slaughter Classified, where he's got the little figure of himself. That's super cool.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. If I'll open this up and throw away the outer packaging, or if I'll tack it up on my wall just as is. But
did they have more?
Yeah, they had a bunch.
Was this at the Saco one?
The Bedford one.
Bedford, okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun. So here's a closer look at my world's smallest Optimus Prime. I had kind of hoped that maybe I could snap this packaging open to take this little figure out and then be able to reseal this. Because I think if I want to display this on my wall, I'd have to put a tack through there. And unfortunately, after kind of looking at it, I don't think there's any way I can bust into this package without completely destroying it. So I think that's what I'm going to have to do. You see there's the cross-sell for the other figures in the line. So before I open him up, I just wanted to bring in my other world's smallest. So this is my G.I. Joe Action Soldier. So you can see I've kept him in the packaging. And even though I'm going to open Optimus Prime, I'm not going to open this guy. I've had this guy for quite a while already, maybe even a couple of years at this point. And as you can see, he doesn't have any exterior packaging. Like, once you open him up, the figure is automatically loose. And, he'd probably just get lost somewhere. So I'm going to keep this guy as is, sealed up. But Optimus Prime, I'm going to open him up because he has a separate little package within the package. So here he is outside of the packaging. You can see he's kind of blotchy, like the way his eyes are painted and everything. It's not great. It looks a little sloppy, but that's to be expected on a figure this small. I like how the packaging is reminiscent of the old 80s packaging, even though Optimus Prime never did come on a blister card like this. And on the back of the packaging, again, we've got some of that classic 80s artwork. Now, one thing that is cool about this mini package is I don't have to slice the bubble and destroy it in order to get to the figure. There's like a little trap door here on the back of the box that requires just a little bit of effort to pop that open. Then let's see, a little tray there, and there's Optimus, and he is articulated. Arms move forward, and I think that's it. And his head turns, but his legs don't move. So that's pretty cute. Cute little Optimus Prime. And now he can serve as an action figure for my other Optimus Primes. So you hold him out in his hand like so. Or he's about the same size as Optimus Prime's buddy Spike here. So you can have him on his other shoulder. It's kind of like he's got a little devil and a little angel on his shoulders here. So anyway, for $3, this was a fun little get. But this other thing I bought here I thought it was a pretty good deal. Now, I'm a big fan of art books of movies.
Me too.
Now, do you have many?
I don't.
It's the kind of thing I would love to have a whole library of them. But being a comic book collector, all my bookshelf space is occupied by comic books and toys. But so I have to be a little selective. But every time a new Star Wars movie comes out, I'm tempted to get the art of it. Because even, what do you think?
I told you about the little scam I have, right? Where I work for the public library system. So anytime they announce a huge art book thing or like a new movie, Star Wars movie came out, I'll do a suggestion for purchase.
Okay, and so then you can
I'll look at it that way, and then I don't have to buy it.
That makes sense. And it doesn't seem like a scam per se.
It's not. It saves me money. It's frugal. Me being frugal.
But yeah, these art books are really great, even when the movie's not so good. Because you get to see, even though Phantom Menace was maybe kind of a shitty movie, you see all the iterations of how they tried to come up with Darth Maul and all the ways he could have looked and them designing the spaceships and everything. And it's really fascinating to see the behind the scenes stuff. I'm the kind of guy that still buys DVDs because I like to listen to the filmmaker commentary and watching the behind the scenes footage. So anyway, this book here was at the dollar store for $5. And it is the art of Aquaman the movie. Oh. Now, I didn't really care for the Aquaman movie all that much. But this book, it would retail in Canada, if you can see that UPC code, for $60. That's how much one of these hardcover art books would be here in Canada. So for $5, that's going to take me a day to read through and absorb all the pictures and stuff. I'm like, that's worth it. Even if I threw it in the garbage when I was done with it. It's just for $5. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of cool stuff in there. Because this is, even though this movie was kind of dumb, it was a spectacle. And in here, I assume I'm going to see how they designed the sharks with the harnesses and the crab people and the different ideas they had for Aquaman's outfit and all that stuff. That stuff I think is cool. So even though the movie wasn't great, for $5, hell yeah. So if you're interested in one of these, they had a whole stack of them as well.
Looks like I'm going to the dollar store.
So I just took the cellophane off of this book. I thought we would take a quick look at some of it together for the first time, just to kind of see what kind of stuff we get in here. So we'll get some comic book art. So yeah, we've got some concept drawings for costumes. So maybe I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. So you see there's plenty of text in these things. If you haven't seen one of these books before, there's, there can be quite a bit to read, but there's also a whole lot of just concept art and stuff here. So this is the kind of stuff I was looking forward to, seeing the concept art for the underwater kingdom, the sharks with saddles and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty cool book to delve into. Big fold-out page here. Okay. Yep, so some pretty cool stuff. Now I just have a couple random things. This might actually be a pretty quick episode because I have just a handful of things here. So I got some stuff from Super 7 the other day. I had ordered the newest wave of Godzilla reaction figures. So I ordered 7 Godzillas, which I had already posted a video. I did a review of those. So if you're curious to see my newest reaction Godzillas, check out that video. But then I did order a couple of other strays, and I figure I'll talk about them here. So speaking of Universal Monsters, I ordered this figure. And I'm sure it probably doesn't look like much on camera.
It's the Mummy?
This is the Mummy.
Okay.
Now, Super 7 has a way of bleeding money out of collectors. And you could say it's a little, depending on how you look at it, it's a little predatory. They know collectors are suckers, and they're just going to keep releasing the same things in different colors. But at the same time, collectors, if you've got the money and the means to do it, you like to have things to collect. So I like the Universal Monsters. I do collect the Universal Monsters in reaction figure form, even though they're still overpriced at $25. This is probably the cheapest way to collect a whole line of Universal Monsters. And so I have most of them in their standard movie colors, like how they appeared on screen. But then you can get them in, like, say, black and white versions. Then you can get them in, like, neon versions. You can get them in glow-in-the-dark versions. And so this is their latest little gimmick. They call these guys glow-in-the-light versions. Now, I don't really know what that means, but basically it's just a translucent, clear, colored figure. So you can get I think they've done 6 of them so far. So you can get, I think, Frankenstein in like green. You can get the Wolfman in yellow. The Phantom of the Opera in red or something. So I might eventually get them all. But I thought, well, I want to at least see what they're like. Like, is this a total waste of my time, or are they cool? And the Mummy is not my favorite Universal monster. It would usually be either the Wolfman or the Creature from the Black Lagoon. But there was something about the pink on this guy that was just like, he looks like a Jolly Rancher. He looked the most delicious to me. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to get the Mummy. And if he's cool, then I'll go back and I'll get the yellow Wolfman and the green Creature later. But I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say about him. Like, he's a simple figure.
Super basic. Yeah.
5 points of articulation. The Mummy is a pretty basic figure at the best of times because he's just a dude wrapped in bandages. There's not a whole lot of detail to him.
Is that the box?
Yeah, he comes with a funky little neon box. I'll show you the box.
That's a nice box. I've gotten, like, so get your minds out of the gutter. That's that's a really cool box.
Like, it looks like something out of like a 70s Atari game or something. So yeah, you see it's got little, like, glows in the light, little advertisement there. So yeah, Mummy. It's a cute little box that he came in. And like, it's the kind of thing you can open up and not ruin the box. So if I want to display the Mummy back inside of there, I can just put him right back in there and sit him on my shelf. And he's kind of cool. He's kind of retro. That's what these things are all about. So I like him. So here's a closer look at my Jolly Rancher Mummy. So as you can see, the detail in this figure, there's not a whole lot of detail to begin with, but when it's all just one color and it's translucent, it's really hard to make out any of those details. But it is there. So he's got some wrinkles on his face, and he's got all those bandages covering his whole body. And because he's translucent, you can see the construction of him. So, like, right in the middle there, you see those 2 circles. So that is kind of where the 2 halves of his torso are held together with those 2 pegs. You can sort of see the inner workings of where his legs and arms attach. But, so glows in the light. That's how they advertise this guy. I don't know if there's much to that. If I shine a light on him or through him, you kind of get the idea. So yeah, he's fun. I like him. Now, compared to my other mummies, I do have a mummy in his, like, standard colors. Now, these figures are not actually identical because this reaction figure of the Mummy is from the very early days of reaction figures when Funko used to make them. So it is a different sculpt. It might be hard to tell because of the colors on these guys, but they're basically the same figure. I do have a more colorful mummy from Super 7. If I can get this guy to stand up here. He doesn't want to. But yeah, I got this mummy from Super 7 a while back. So these are the exact same figures, the same sculpt on these guys, except this guy is colored in these kind of crazy day glow colors. And he's probably equally as wacky as this guy. Not necessary for everybody. If you're just a fan of the Universal Monsters, you might be content with the standard colors. That's probably all you really need. But if you're kind of a collector who's addicted to the rush of getting a new action figure and you like adding new color schemes and things like that, then sure, why not? Go out and grab yourself a glow-in-the-light translucent pink mummy. And then the other two reaction figures I ordered from Super 7 are Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols. Now, are you a Sex Pistols fan?
I'm not.
Now, I am a punk rocker at heart, and I am a Sex Pistols fan. And it's one of these things, like, I remember years ago, we're going to be saying 10 years now, I don't know how long, close to that, but when Funko Pops were kind of still new, and I thought they were maybe going to be a fad that would fizzle out in no time, because we did multiple things before Funko Pops, like there was Mighty Mugs and other vinyl figures that came out, little bobbleheads, and then they would go away. So when Funko Pops came out, I liked them right away. There's something charming about the aesthetic of a Funko Pop. But I didn't want to get into another line that was just going to disappear, because I already have like 10 Mighty Mugs, and now it's kind of a weird, incomplete collection. So I remember going to Strange Adventures, and they had Funko Pops of these two guys. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, it's not too often that you're going to get Sex Pistol figures. And I was like, but no, I don't need those things. I passed on them, and now they're one of those things that, like, if you go on eBay and try and find these guys as Funko Pops, they're like selling for $250 a piece or something. And it's one of these, even though they're stupid, it's just been a regret of mine for many years. I'm like, why didn't I just buy those stupid Funko Pops when I had the chance? Because with Funko Pops, I don't buy a whole lot of them these days, but they're one of those things that I like to get when there's a random, like a one-off thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like buying, say, the G.I. Joes or Transformers as Funko Pops, because I have those things already as G.I. Joes and as Transformers. But I don't really need a lifelike 6-inch version of every musician I like. But it's kind of cool to get them represented as Funko Pops. So, like, I have Green Day as Funko Pops. I have Blink-182 as Funko Pops. I have the Ramones as Funko Pops. So I've got all these, like, punk rockers. I've kind of got a little collection within a collection. And the fact that I never got the Sex Pistols and probably never will, it has always just been, like, just kind of irks me. So when I found out they were coming out as reaction figures, I kind of could breathe a sigh of relief. I'd still prefer if I had the Funkos, but at least now I have the Sex Pistols in my collection. Now, there's only 2 of the 4 members, but these are the 2 most well-known guys. I'm a completist, I kind of wish they would just do the whole band. And maybe what they should have done is just release it as a whole box set, so that way people that only would have bought these 2 are kind of forced to buy the other 2, which might piss some people off. But that's the only way that could really justify the cost of making the other guys, because not many people would buy them on their own, I don't think. But anyway, they're cool. I'm glad I got them. They both have some fun little accessories. So there is a guitar for Sid. And again, I'll do some inserts here so you can see this stuff. And then there's a mic with a full mic stand for Johnny.
That's cool.
So that's kind of cool. And this is a nice little accessory that I can use for future Instagram posts and stuff. I do have a slight complaint on them, though, is that I find their proportions are weird. That they don't look like reaction figures.
They're thin.
They're thin. I feel their legs are too long, maybe. But, like, reaction figures have a distinct look. Whether it's Universal Monsters or whether it's G.I. Joe, you can kind of line them all up and they look like a consistent collection. Kind of like with Funko Pops. You can have a Jurassic Park T-Rex and put it next to a Johnny Rotten, and you can tell they're from the same collection because they all have those googly eyes and the big head, and they all kind of work. But yeah, these guys here to me, if I displayed them with my other reaction figures, they look like they're made by a different company or something. And I guess maybe because these are real people and maybe they're trying to capture the look a little better and be less cartoony.
Still have to keep it consistent, though.
But yeah, so I can appreciate that. And if they had done that right from the get-go, I'd be on board with that. But to kind of do a change this far into the game, because reaction figures is one of my fastest growing collections. I have, I don't know, I might have 200 of them by now. And yeah, to see them switch styles, it kind of throws me off a little bit. So, and I don't know, I'll have to do some side-by-sides when I do some close-ups to compare them to, say, a Duke reaction figure or a Universal Monster reaction figure. And maybe I'm wrong, but you notice that too, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. The other thing is I find their expressions are too neutral, especially on Johnny. Like, I feel he should be sneering. Mm-hmm. They should have got him like kind of in mid-singing. He comes with a microphone, so his mouth should be open. I kind of wish he didn't have his sunglasses on so he had a more expressive look on his face. Like, these guys look pretty docile for the Sex Pistols. So that's my other kind of gripe about it. Like, they look cool. The outfits are a good choice and everything. But yeah, I wish they looked a little angrier.
I don't have much to say on them because I'm not a fan. But
yeah. Well, you should check them out. They're an easy band to get into. They've only got one album, so easy peasy. So here's a closer look at my Sex Pistols reaction figures. And so now you can see kind of all the detail I was talking about. Like, I think they look really good. I like all the detail that they put into his shirt there. Like, you can actually read the text and everything. He looks good. He's got all those little tears throughout his shirt. Lots of little studs all individually painted on his belt. All the little rivets and everything. And then the microphone's cool. It's got some paint apps and everything on there. And it looks pretty good. Now, because he doesn't have any elbows, he can't hold the microphone very believably. He's holding it out very far from himself. Here's Sid. So again, he's got some nice detail with all those little leopard prints. Those are all separate paint applications. Then he's got his little lock there. He's also got the little studs on his belt and on his wristband. The strings on his base and everything there. Those are all individually painted. You know, so they did put some, there's some money in there. And the figures, like, look pretty good. I think they should have looked a little bit more, rowdy, a little more juvenile. Like, they look pretty, those are pretty neutral expressions. You know, he's making a little bit of a shrug face. And then Johnny here, he looks extremely kind of chill. Like, you know, he doesn't have an arched eyebrow or anything. So I really think they could have done a little bit more with the expressions. But I like his hair. That's really well done. Now, anyway, onto the scale of them. Like, I'll just bring out a couple of the reaction figures here. So here is Duke. Here's the Mummy that we just had out. Here's Vincent Price. He might be a good one to compare to because he's another, real person. And I also grabbed a Star Wars figure from Hasbro's Star Wars Retro line. And then here's a figure from Marvel Legends Retro. So all to the same scale. So I love how reaction figures and these other lines, they all kind of blend together. You can have a big shared universe with all these characters. But do you see what I mean with these guys? Like, it might be minor, but if you look at, say, Vincent Price here, like, he's got that very square, like, T crotch, we'll call it. It kind of makes that T shape there. Big rectangle. Duke, kind of the same thing. And then with these guys here, they're just, their legs are so much skinnier, and the crotch area is so much skinnier. Like, it just looks to be kind of a different scale, almost. They look a little off to me. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. They did something similar with Funko Pops. Years and years ago when Funko first came out, they all had the same body. Every Funko was kind of in a little squatty position, kind of like a He-Man figure. And I kind of liked that. But as they got more and more popular, they added more diversity, and now all the characters are posed, and they're swinging a punch, or they're jumping and leaping. And I don't know, I kind of liked the consistency of my old Funko Pop collection, where they were all in that exact same pose. And so it's the same thing with reaction figures. I kind of wish these guys just had a build more similar to these guys, but they still look good. I just kind of like consistency, I guess. I got another reaction figure here. So this one I ordered from Big Bad Toy Store. And this is a weird one for me because you'll know what it is. I already showed you a picture of it. It's a Power Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
I am too old for the Power Rangers. They came around when I was already in high school, and I thought they were dumb. My little brother watched them, and I don't know why I thought they were dumb, because I'm a Godzilla fan. And if you watch those old Godzilla movies, they're just Power Rangers. It's two guys in big goofy outfits punching each other, knocking over fake buildings. I loved that when it was Godzilla. But Power Rangers, I don't know. My initial impression, maybe because I thought, this is just a knockoff of Godzilla. I found it disrespectful to Godzilla. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I should probably like it, but I don't. So, I've had zero interest in Power Rangers when I was young, and all these decades later, still could care less about Power Rangers. But we were in the comic shop the other day, and they had one of the Super 7 Ultimates Power Rangers figures, which is their Zord, which is one of these robot dinosaurs they drive in. And seeing it in the Super 7 Ultimate format was really cool. It's the red T-Rex. And you slide that box open and you see this thing. It's just a big, chunky hunk of plastic. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a robot T-Rex. That, at face value, that is cool.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I had some robot dinosaurs. I had a toy line called Zoids, which was dinosaurs that you wind them up and they walked slow. Loved those. The Dinobots of Transformers. Love those. Mechagodzilla. Mm-hmm. Love that. And I'm looking at this toy, and I'm realizing these Ultimates aren't always super easy to get because they're usually made to order. So if you didn't pre-order them, there might not be any around for you to buy. So it's not like this is the kind of thing that I can just buy willy-nilly whenever. I know if I don't grab it when I see it, it could be gone to me forever. So here this thing was, and I was thinking of buying it. And I'm like, why would I buy a Power Ranger? It just goes against my dislike of Power Rangers, but I'm like, but it's a robot dinosaur. And I was trying to separate the two. Anyway, I managed to leave that day without buying it, but I kept thinking about it when I got home. And I was like,
there.
It's still there, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's at his comic shop, so I'm not in there all the time. Anyway, those Ultimate figures are $75 plus tax here in Canada. So I'm looking at $85 figure. And I'm like... And I went on Big Bad Toy Store to see about ordering it online, which the cost would probably be about the same. But I was like, you know what? If they make the same thing in a reaction figure, maybe that's the better bet. Because that's going to be $25. It'll scratch that itch of getting that character. I could display it with my Godzilla reaction figures, and in my mind, I could make the justification that it's not a Power Ranger, it's a Godzilla monster or whatever. Anyway, I learned that they haven't made the Dino Zord as a reaction figure yet. They probably will. But they have made a couple other Zords, which are the Power Ranger robots, in reaction figure format. So they had one called the White Tiger Zord, and I thought, well, I'll buy him. So that's what I've got here. That was a long-winded intro. But this here is the reaction White Tiger Zord. Now he is big.
He's hefty.
This guy is 6 inches. So, and I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you, because I think it is cool that the average reaction figure is 3 3/4 inches. So when you buy a Power Ranger, the actual Power Rangers themselves, they would be this size. And so when you get their Zords, now it's by no means to scale, because this thing should be this tall. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they blew it up so it's at least bigger, I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm not buying this to display with my Power Rangers. I'm buying this to display with my Godzillas. And my Godzilla reaction figures are only 3 3/4 inches tall. So now if I display this with my Godzilla, he looks like the biggest, baddest thing on the block. You could body slam my Godzillas around, and that's not really my intent. I kind of wanted to get these Zords to display with my Godzilla. So now I don't know if I'm going to continue down this route or not. Like, he's still a cool looking robot. If I separate the Power Rangeriness of him, he's a cool robot, but I don't really know where to display him or where he fits in.
I mean, unless you were a Power Ranger fan, you wouldn't know what the hell that is.
I know, but I know that.
I know you do. I kind of like him. I did watch the Power Rangers.
Yeah, well, you're younger.
Only for like a year or two, I think. So,
well, my younger brother is your age, and he was super into Power Rangers. Like, he had the gloves that go and make the noise. He had a bunch of the toys. I think they transformed, like their bellies opened and they flipped to human heads or something. Anyway, he was really into Power Rangers, so it would make total sense if you were into Power Rangers. That was the right age for you.
It was more my brother, but yeah, I got out of them when I was like 11, I think they were.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a solid figure.
Like, he doesn't move much, but he's a reaction figure, so he's not really supposed to. Reaction figures only have 5 points of articulation, which is fine with a little guy like this. But when you see this big chunky guy like that, you almost expect like he should have elbows or knees or something. So it feels a little weird to hold a reaction figure at that scale. Like, I like it too.
I want one now.
You should. Well, there's 4 Zords you can get so far. There's what's their standard robot called when all the Zords merge together? Megazord?
Megazord.
So yeah, you can get Megazord in 2 different colors, and then you can get the Dragon Zord, and then the White Tiger Zord. So there are 4 Zords. They haven't done that red T-Rex one yet, but I'm assuming they will eventually. Which I will probably buy when they get around to him. I don't know if I feel compelled to buy the other ones, like the Black Woolly Mammoth and whatever else. But at least that red T-Rex I feel I'll have to get. And I might want to get the Megazord and stuff too.
Were you into Voltron?
A little bit. They did do reaction figures of Voltron.
Okay, that was my next question.
I didn't buy them. I think they were at small scale though.
Okay.
So if I bought the Voltron, I think he would scale with my Godzillas, and he'd look small compared to him.
Right.
I could be wrong about that, or they might have even done them in both scales. And I know they've done them a couple different times. They did like a flat color, and then they did a metallic color scheme. And I remember thinking about buying it at the time, but I do have a Voltron toy in my collection already, a pretty nice one from Mattel from a few years ago. And I was never that big a Voltron fan that I kind of figure, I've got a Voltron, he's represented in my collection, I don't need to buy another one. But if I get the reaction figure version, it's almost like he's not a one-off anymore. Now he's part of my reaction figure collection. Yeah. So I kind of do regret not buying that Voltron one. It might still be available online somewhere. Maybe I should look. But anyway, yeah, he's kind of fun.
I love him.
You love him? All right. So you've been won over. So here's a closer look at the White Tiger Zord. So he's pretty cool. He's got that robot face with the tiger face just kind of protruding right out of his chest, which is kind of a, you see that on a lot of 80s robots. It's kind of cheesy, but kind of awesome at the same time. And yeah, this guy is big and chunky. Like, really thick. I love my figures to have big chunky feet like this. Not only do I like the look, but it also means that they stand up very well because they have a nice solid base to stand on. So yeah, he's a good size figure. And even though he's a reaction figure, which usually means 3 3/4 inches, you can see that he's actually like 6 inches. So if I put him in here next to a G.I. Joe classified figure, or maybe like a Marvel Legend figure, he's kind of to scale with those guys. Maybe not quite. He's a little shorter than both of those lines. But anyway, if we compare him to other reaction figures, again, you can see how he towers over these guys here. So that's cool because it would make him stand out on a shelf if you had him displayed with all the Power Rangers down there. Like I said before, obviously it's not to scale, but just the fact that he's bigger does kind of sell the fact that he's supposed to be a big robot. So I like the fact that he's bigger than these guys and the Power Rangers. However, as I noted earlier, I kind of wanted to display this guy with my Godzillas because I could kind of have a little kaiju scene. But my Godzilla reaction figures are in that 3 3/4 inch scale as well. So they're kind of small. And this guy kind of towers over them. So even the other robots that I have, such as the Jet Jaguar from the Godzilla line or the Ultraman from Mezco's 5 Points line, they would be this size rather than to scale with the Tiger Zord. I do have a couple other reaction figures in this scale. A couple of Transformers. So here's Unicron. I also have Devastator. The Sentinel from the Marvel Retro line is also a 6-inch figure in this scale. So yeah, he does fit in with other figures, and it makes sense why he's larger. And I do like him just as a standalone figure. I like how big and chunky he is. He's a good size. But I still think I would have preferred if they made the Zords at the 3 3/4 inch scale, just for my own selfish needs, so I could display them better with my Godzillas. All right, I only have one last toy to talk about, and then I know I've monopolized this episode, so
that's okay.
Start thinking if there's any toy news or any reveals you want to talk about in a second. You can have the floor.
Oh God!
But this is another thing that came from Big Bad Toy Store. So this is Shrapnel, sometimes called Shrapnel for trademark reason. But this is one of the Decepticon Insecticons. And this is my favorite Insecticon. So last year we got Kickback, which is the Insecticon that turns into a grasshopper. And I loved that one too. And if you recall, he almost made my best of the year list.
I do recall.
I hummed and hawed about it. But my rationale for him not making my best of list, even though it was a great figure, was that when we were kids, I had Shrapnel, my brother had Bombshell, and neither of us had Kickback. So even though the figure was the best version of Kickback they've ever done, I just didn't have that nostalgic tie to the character. I didn't have that. So I said in that video, I'm like, I bet in the coming year we'll probably get either Shrapnel or Bombshell or both. And either of them would have a much better chance of making my best of list this coming year. So I've got Shrapnel now, and I do love it. Like, he doesn't blow my mind. Like, I don't hold him and think, like, okay, this is a contender for my best of the year. He probably will make it to near the end of the list, but I don't know if he's got the chops to make it to the top. And that's probably because Kickback stole some of his thunder. Mm-hmm. Like, him and Kickback have a lot of the same. They're the same size. They have the same colors. The same, the same aesthetic. That I've had Kickback already for several months now, so he loses some of that wow factor. But
what does he turn into?
Is
it a beetle?
Yeah, I think it's I forget what the stag beetle.
Yeah,
but there's a couple Insecticons that turn into stag beetles, and I guess there's maybe different kinds of stag beetles, because Bombshell turns into a stag beetle as well, or at least some sort of beetle, and he's just got one weird little snout.
Yeah.
And where this guy, as you can see, he's got big chompers on him, so he's got big, like, kind of prehistoric bug chompers on him. So I might have the beetle species wrong, but he is some sort of beetle anyway. But yeah, I loved this guy in the cartoon, and I loved the vintage toy. And I've talked about it before, with like when I reviewed Kickback. But the vintage toys were really cool because they had some like chrome metal on them, and they were about this size. And this is what I'd call like a medium-sized Transformer. I forget what they have classifications nowadays. This guy might be called a deluxe or something, because there's small, deluxe, ultra, or whatever. Anyway, but this is the scale that my vintage Shrapnel was. Probably a little shorter than this, actually. But I always wanted a good version of him in this scale, because the vintage one, he didn't have knees that could bend or anything. They're always very rigid and stiff. And then they've given us new versions of the Insecticons in the years since, but they're always like really small, like bugs, which maybe even makes more sense, because this guy is about the same size as a Transformer that turns into a car, so that's pretty scary. But I don't know, the scale that existed when I was a kid is a scale that's locked into my head, and I feel they have to stick with those scales. So the Insecticons in my mind should be this big. This is the first time I'm finally getting a Shrapnel in this scale, he looks like he just stepped right out of the cartoon or whatever. Like, he looks great. I love the head sculpt. I love the design. The colors, the translucent yellow cockpit on the front there. So yeah, I think he's awesome. And I'm glad I finally got him. And hopefully we get Bombshell later this year or next year to complete the trio. So yeah. You got any other thoughts on him?
I like him. I like the colors. I'm trying to remember if I had him or not. I did have a couple of the vintage Insecticons. I can't remember their names though, but
now see, one thing that's kind of fun about him is all the Insecticons talked with some weird, I don't know if I'd say it an inflection or an impediment, but to make them distinct when I talked in the cartoon. And Shrapnel's thing was that he always duplicated the last word in every sentence. So he'd say, like, we must escape. Like, destroy the Autobots. You know, like, that was just his little thing. And so whenever I played with him as a kid, I'd always have to, like, do the little speech pattern thing that he did. He's just a fun character.
Yeah. Are you more of an Autobot or Decepticon guy?
I don't know if I could say one way or the other. Like, yeah, I think it's easier. Like, when you go with something like Star Wars or G.I. Joe even, like, it's easier to say I like the bad guys over the good guys because the bad guys all have cooler masks and stuff like that. Where the G.I. Joe are more basic army guys. But with Transformers, like, they're all
cool.
They're all cool robots. And it's not even like the Decepticons are all black and the other ones are all white or anything. Like, they all have come in a range of colors. Some of them are cars, some of them are jets. You know, there's no real consistency. Like, if it was like all vehicles against all animals or something, that would be an easier line to draw. But yeah, I think I probably like more of the Decepticons than I do of the Autobots. Like Soundwave, Shockwave, those guys are like really high up. Shrapnel, Thrust. I like a lot of Decepticons, but I also love a lot of Autobots. So I don't know. But you're more of a Decepticon guy?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. That's kind of fun to root for the bad guys sometimes. So here's a closer look at Shrapnel. So yeah, it looks sharp. Everything I spoke about before. I like the color scheme, the black and the purple. And he's got a very nice paint job where it looks almost metallic, the way the paint reflects off of that black, as opposed to, say, this gray, which is very kind of a flat, matte gray. I think if they had used a silver paint similar to this black paint, I wouldn't miss the chrome of the original so much. But yeah, I really like this kind of shiny, reflective paint they use there. It looks really good. It almost makes them look metal. For accessories, he's got this gun here, which is based off of the vintage figure. The vintage figure had a chrome gun. He also has these two guns, which I stuck them on the bottom of his arms, but you don't have to do that. I'm not sure where they're supposed to go. He's got a couple of little plugs on him, so you could stick these on the back of his shoulders if you so desired. Maybe a couple other places. Or don't put them on him at all. But I kind of like when my figures can store all their pieces, so I have chosen to plug them in here. You could also plug them on the back of his legs or whatever. So yeah. So he basically has 3 guns. So, pretty cool. And I'll display him next to Kickback here. So this is the Insecticon we got last year. So these guys are awesome. I really like the size of them. Because I mentioned before, the Insecticons we got before were all at this scale. So these guys are from a few years ago. I think it was maybe during the like Combiner Wars era. So I've got Kickback and Shrapnel. And then the other guy, Bombshell. So now I just need a Bombshell in the larger scale. And you can see how these guys are pretty inconsistent. They all came out like with a couple months, maybe even years in between them. And they don't match. This guy's yellow doesn't match his yellow. This guy went with the translucent yellow, which is what I would have preferred. So I'm glad that we have some consistency amongst the newer figures. Anyway, I'm just looking forward to getting Bombshell and completing my team of Insecticons. Now, until we do get it, I have a really cool third-party Bombshell that I bought years ago. And he's about the same scale as these guys. Again, there's some inconsistency with the... this guy doesn't have the translucent yellow. The purples don't match so great. But it's a really, really cool figure. I like this a lot. And when this figure came out, I actually bought a Bombshell and I bought Shrapnel. So this guy has kind of been my stand-in Shrapnel for many, many years until this guy showed up. But I never really liked this one as much as I liked the Bombshell. It doesn't really capture his look, as you can see for his face. He's got a shield over his mouth like Optimus Prime. He doesn't have the mouth and nose that Shrapnel would. And also he doesn't have those definitive big pincers. Like they're here. And this kind of spinning blade on his back also kind of recreates that look of having the big silver jaws on each side of his head. But it never really worked for me for Shrapnel. And then that little one that Hasbro officially gave us a couple years ago, I was just never very pleased with it. He was just too small, and with all these extra legs, they were just kind of gangly and hanging off of him like that. You know, this guy's got a lot of what we call kibble. You know, he's got hollow spots on the back with all his extra junk hanging off of him. Makes it kind of hard to handle, and he just looks a little busy. This figure here is much, much better. Very little in the way of kibble. He's got some hollow spots on his arms and the back of his legs there. But for the most part, he's pretty solid. He's got a good weight to him. He poses well, which like the vintage figure could never do. You can spread his legs out, you know, bend him at the knees, bend him at the elbows, put his arms out to the side. Again, this is stuff the vintage figure couldn't come close to doing. So yeah, looks great. I'm really happy with this guy. Okay, so I was just trying to pull anything else we could talk about, and then our camera cut off and timed out. So I think that was, you know,
a hint.
This was the universe's way of saying, okay, enough already, guys. So let's wrap it up. Thank you for watching.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yep.
Love your comments. Love interacting with you.
Yeah, do all that stuff. All right, thanks for watching. See you soon. Ciao.
Keep collecting.